Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. I am your host, Alan Seals, and this episode is with Tony and Grammy nominee Derrick Baskin. I love talking with Derrick. He has so much gratitude for this life and this profession that he has, I'm going to say, fallen into. He didn't originally set out to be an actor or even a Broadway performer. He got a biology degree, was full-on pre-med, and then all of a sudden, he just decided to try giving singing, not acting, mind you, trying to give singing a try, and the rest is history. There are two times that I remember in the interview where his face lit up so much with the enjoyment and the love for what the subject he was talking about. And these two times were when he spoke of the support and the love from his parents. And the other time was of the friendship and the lessons he's learned, the friendship he's formed with Otis Williams and everything he's learned from that relationship. Just incredible. He's got a new show where he is headlining for the very first time at 54 Below, June 29th to July 3rd. So go to 54below.com, get your tickets for that. And of course, we cover that in this interview. It's just an incredible, incredible chat. Find me online at theater_podcast before we kick off the episode. Leave a rating, leave a review, tell your friends. And now everybody, please enjoy this episode with Derrick Baskin.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is a Tony and Grammy nominated actor for his role in Ain't Too Proud. He originated the roles of Mitch Mahoney in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, Gator in Memphis, and even has had the fortune of starring in The Little Mermaid. TV film credits include The Good Lord Bird, starring alongside Ethan Hawke, Marshall with the late Chadwick Boseman, and 3 seasons on Hulu's critically acclaimed sitcom Difficult People. He has a brand new show coming up at 54 Below, June 29th to July 3rd. Derrick Baskin, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. The funny thing about that intro is you forget like what you've done. And so the way you said Mitch Mahoney was there's this like intro song that introduces me in the show. Mm-hmm. And I used to have to say Mitch Mahoney. And then the cast would say Mitch Mahoney. And so the way you said it was exactly how the cast used to say Mitch Mahoney, which made me, it literally took me back. Like, Mitch Mahoney. I was like, wow, how did he know?
Oh man, I remember that show, man. It was so good. And that was your Broadway debut, right?
Yeah, man, it was. I had no clue what I was doing, man. I was just, happy to be on Broadway.
Right. Oh my gosh. I think that was 2005, I believe, if memory serves.
Yeah, it was.
And God, so you've obviously come a long way since then. Speaking about your latest show, you were Otis Williams in Ain't Too Proud, which got you, of course, your Tony and your Grammy nomination. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. It is a story of a group of Black men rising above so much adversity to actually become the icons that they are today. So if you were to go back into the show now, given everything that's happened with George Floyd's murder and the racial injustices being at the forefront of people's minds more so than what we'll call normal, would you approach the role any differently? And you actually got to get closure, I think, because your contract ended, like a week before Broadway shut down, right?
Literally a week before. Myself and Ephraim Sykes, we had our last show the week before. We went to Miami the next day. And then a week later, Broadway shut down. So I'm actually grateful to have had like a complete chapter with that show. I'm grateful that I was able to originate it, to shape it, to form what it is now. I'm very honored to have portrayed Otis Williams in that show and in that particular way. I have handed the reins. I've given the reins to Nick Walker, who is my replacement.
Yes.
And I think he might have did 2 shows, 2 or maybe 3 before the Broadway shut down. So I'm sure he's like itching to get back and kind of like get into, into Otis's skin. I will answer your question this way. For me, the realities of George Floyd, the racial injustices that you mentioned, a lot of that, which the Temptations kind of endured back in the 50s and the 60s when they were forming, that has always been my reality. So the only difference is now it's more of a national concern. And I'm grateful that for this pandemic, because it caused us to sit and be still and to actually look at each other. Mm-hmm. And I feel that the racial injustices, the plight, if you will, of Black people in this country has become such a focal point only because we were forced to sit still. We were forced to kind of like everything shut down. So the things that were kind of screaming at us, that were fighting for attention, those things kind of register louder with us. And so I'm grateful. I'm very grateful for the pandemic because it brought some things to light where all of us, not just Black people, can take notice and say, what do we need to do to kind of fix this situation? And it's going to take a lot of fixing. But when people go back to see Ain't Too Proud, I think they start shows in October. And so when that show comes back, the eyes who are going to see this show are going to just see it with different eyes. I'm hoping eyes with a little bit more compassion, a little bit more empathy. But I think what you're going to, what's actually really going to hit you is that, yes, we have come far from the 50s and 60s, but yet we haven't. And so I'm hoping that it will inspire people who go to see Ain't Too Proud once they open again, to say, you know what, there's still some work that needs to be done. What can I do on my part? What can I do between me and my friends even, because change starts with yourself. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, everyone doing their own part. Small changes when you add those up, equal a big change. And so I think shows like Ain't Too Proud and like Tina the Musical, which is coming back, which just talk about, race relations. I think that people will just look at it with different eyes, and I think eyes of compassion, but also I think it'll and just inspire people to, at the very least, make sure that the energy they're bringing into the world is that of a positive change.
Yeah. Do you still talk to Otis? I mean, I know that the two of you worked, being the only surviving member of the original Temps, today as the show is opening. I know that he had a lot of input into the creation.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I feel like I heard that you formed a friendship with Otis, right? Like,
yeah, man. Listen, he's still my uncle. We call I call him Uncle O. That's it. All of us call him Uncle O. It's not just me. And I called him. I want to say it might have been 2 weeks ago because he posted something. Well, he didn't do it. I'm sure his social media skills are hopefully less than mine. But like, there was a post of him in the gym, working out, and he looked really good. And so I just called him, man. I was like, look at you, man. I was like, you give me a run for my money. I'm going to have to do some push-ups myself because he's getting ready to, since the world is opening back up, the Temptations are going back on the road. And this is he told me this year, I want to say it's their 60th anniversary.
Wow.
And this year that shut the world down, this pandemic, he said this is the first time that he stopped in about 60 years. And so he's trying to, just get back in shape and to build his stamina up. And so, yeah, I literally talked to him about 2 weeks ago, and I will never, that's a friendship that I will forever cherish. Like, that one goes beyond the show. It just does. And he has welcomed me into his heart and into his family. And, when I was portraying him, he gave me his blessing. And there's not a time where I can't call him, and throughout the pandemic, we would just check in on each other. Last summer, I traveled to LA, and I went to go visit him, and it was like, of course, with COVID regulations and all that stuff, everyone has their masks on and everyone's, doing things from a distance. But I just had to see him. And, he was like, yeah, I would love to see you. And that friendship is one that, that's cemented, period. Like after, I've left the show, but that friendship is going to continue.
So another 20 years from now, when you have your 10 Tonys and someone's making the Derrick Baskin show.
Wow. Okay.
And you got some young hotshot kid who's coming up playing young Derrick Baskin. Like I'm trying to think about this from the reverse situation, right? Like if someone was making a musical or a movie or a show or something about me, or something's making something about you, I would be so critical, I think, of that's not how that happened. Like, but Stephanie J. Block has a relationship with Cher now, and you're in a relationship with Otis, and they're like, I think that's, I guess, do you think about this? Do you think about what it must be like for him to see his life just thrown out there like this?
Yeah, I mean, well, we talked about it. There was a TV movie, I want to say maybe in the early 90s, about the Temptations. And I saw that when I was a kid, man. And he still hasn't seen that. He hasn't watched it. I think it hits a little bit too close. It hit too close to home, and he hasn't watched that. Dominique Morisseau, the writer of Ain't Too Proud, she just sat with him and she talked with him, and she really got a really good picture and a really good shape of kind of the Temps as a whole. And so we presented it to him for the first time 2017. We showed him the first act. We were like, we're just gonna ease you into this because this is a lot, like someone said, this is your life. You don't want to show them all of it because it can be overwhelming. And so we sat him down, we showed him the first act, and something happened with the guy who played Eddie Kendricks. And he said something which is in the script. And Otis, from the side, he was like, yep. He's like, yep, that was Eddie. And once he did that, it eased the tension of everyone. And I think he is just I think he's kind of humbled at the way we are honoring him. He's a very humble person, he's a very flashy person, but the core of him, he comes from very humble beginnings, and that has never left him. And so I think it's a bit humbling for him to kind of see us honor his life and the life of his brothers every day. And he's come to the show, and at every we did a little tour before we hit Broadway, and every city, every theater we were at, he was there. And every time he watched it, it was like the first time. And I could usually see him in the audience, and I can see the pride, and then I can see him remembering again. Every time you can see him remember when we're at, the Copa, when the Temptations were at the Copa, he remembers that, when we were, there was a part when we were, it's on a bus tour. He remembers that, he remembers the struggles of playing kind of in the Jim Crow South when the audiences were segregated. He remembers that. And so you can see his eyes light up. You can see him holding back tears when there's a loss of one of his brothers. You can really see him go through that. So, when I first started, I was a bit nerve-wracking because you're like, I don't, it's you, that I'm playing. But, the difference is, we're both artists, but he doesn't do what I do. You know what I mean? He's not an actor. He's he'll get up there, he'll sing for you, put on a show. But what I do is just a little bit different. And because of that, I was like, oh, well, you don't do this. So because of that, it kind of eased the pressure. There was no pressure. All I had to do was just honor him as a man, as an artist, because had he not existed, my place here where I'm at as an artist would be quite, quite different. And so I was just, every night I was just able to say, man, thanks. And we were very similar kind of, it's interesting because we're both Scorpios. uh, and our temperaments, they're just very similar. And you wouldn't know that. Like when I got cast, they didn't know. You know what I mean? It kind of just happened that we have these similarities in the way that he leads and the way that I lead. You know, when I carried the show, I had to do it from, you know, I'm not the flashy person here. I'm the person that needs to hold things together. And that's how Otis was. You know, he was kind of the point person with Berry Gordy. He and Berry Gordy had a really good relationship. And so a lot of things that came from Barry went through Otis. And so, you know, I began to find the similarities between kind of our personas and kind of how we operate through life. And once I did that, it was actually kind of cool because I'm not a person that like impersonates people. Like that's not my wheelhouse. Like if I can give you the truth of a person, like I can do that. But like characteristics and like, you know, Jamie Foxx, what he did with Ray Charles, like it was so brilliant. And that ain't me. Like I'm not gonna impersonate someone like that. Just not. I probably could. I just haven't. And so, but when I found the similarities between the two of us, I remember one time like just in the show, in the middle of a show, I kind of just like found him. Like it was interesting and it just kind of clicked. And I was just like, ooh, you're Otis now. Like it was really interesting. And he's just been, I don't know, he's been such a great friend, but he's, you know, he tells us that we're telling the story right. And so that's all you need. And once you get that kind of blessing, once you get that stamp of approval from him, you're good to go.
Oh, that's a level of comfortability and a level of trust and love, I think, love for you and love for the cast to say like, here's my story. I'm trusting you and Dominique and all of these amazing individuals to tell it in a way that it, you know, it's not going to paint everybody in the best light. It's going to tell the truth. Tell the truth. And that's what's important.
See, the thing about it, and what I love about theater, so my best friend, his name is James Iglehart. He got a Tony he played the genie in Aladdin.
You say that like people don't know who JMI is on this podcast. James Iglehart. Okay.
That's my bestie, man. And we've been best friends since 2004. We're very, very, very different in our tastes of theater. He's very flashy. You know, he loves musical theater. I'm like a tortured soul. You know what I mean? So like the thing about what I loved about Ain't Too Proud is it showed the human side of things because that's what we are. We just have flaws, you know? And I mean, I have so many flaws and I relate to theater that shows me that, you know, these men are icons. You know, the Temptations, they were icons, and yet they were just men with problems, you know? And I said, I'm a man with problems. I can relate to that. You know what I mean? And so I love that, you know, Dominique, she didn't shy away from, you know, David Ruffin's drug abuse, you know? She didn't shy away from Paul Williams and his alcoholism and it's also his health problems, you know? There were just a lot of issues that she said, this is what it means to be a human. And I think if you do that, you actually honor them more. You know, sometimes we're scared to tell kind of the dark sides of things. But I think, you know, when you do that, I think you kind of just honor the people you're playing. And it actually helped me honor myself, you know, like with this pandemic, I was able to kind of just sit down with myself and just say, you know, let's look at the relationships that you're in and let's look at, you know, relationship with your family, relationship with your friends, relationships romantically. Let's look at how you look at yourself in your career. And I started to see some things that I wanted to adjust that were not always pretty. And I think the reason why I could do that is because I did that with Otis. You know, I said, okay, well, he made these decisions. Some of the decisions were like for the betterment of the group, but also very hard ones. And I've had to also do that with my life. And so that kind of theater is the kind I relate to because it is me and it's all of us, honestly.
I get that. I understand the need to tell a human story, make people human. And that's partially why this podcast exists for me, because I want to humanize. I mean, I don't know if you put yourself in the same bucket, but a lot of people do. The Derrick Baskins, the Ephraim Sykes, the Stephanie J. Blocks, like the James Monroe Igleharts, right? All of you have people that look up to you. Like you're looking up to Otis, like you're looking up to like these other people, and to humanize you and say, you're just a guy with problems. I'm just a guy with problems. They're just people with problems, whoever they are. And I love to talk to somebody that appears so successful business-wise, career-wise, and is be like, man, what bothers you? What makes you like everybody else? And then the feedback from everybody else is just like, wow, I needed that. I needed to feel not othered. I needed to feel like I belong. And everybody wants that. Everybody needs that.
I think so, and it's so funny because he is my best friend and he's so major at the same time, but I don't care what he's achieved, right? He has my heart as my best friend, so like we've taken care of each other. And so it's like, wait, I lost my train of thought. When you can say, he and I and Stephanie's a wonderful woman. Ephraim, that's also my little brother. I've known him since 2008. I put him in his first Broadway show. We know where the bodies are buried with each other. It's like, it's that situation, but like, we've just had wonderful opportunities, I've had some wonderful opportunities, in my career, and they have really been a blessing, but it doesn't take away from me just being still a person with struggles, right? I have fallen in love. I have fallen out of love. There's a lot of rejection in this business that I have to make sure that I don't allow to deter me from my dreams. I have to make sure that I validate myself as opposed to someone else validating me. Like, these are things that everyone goes through, except for, I don't know about, I would say regular people who are not actors. Like,
muggles.
I think muggles, if you will. Like, I don't know if they deal with as much of rejection as we do because it's just part of it, but everyone deals with, their version of, how do I make myself a better person? And, we can all relate on the human level, no matter like what you actually do as your vocation, if you're following your dreams or not, And so, yeah, I always believe in like just finding that commonality between all of us, because there's so many common points between all of us.
Well, tell me about little Derrick. Like, what got you into performing? What made you want to start heading down this path in the first place?
That's a loaded question. And we'll be here till 2 weeks if I answer it all the way. For 2 weeks answering it, I'll try to give you cliff notes. So
the drunk history version.
I'll give you the drunk history. I was born in North Carolina. My mom I'm the oldest of 6 kids. And my mom, I don't know how she knew it, but my mom knew that I would be a singer. She always knew that. And so when I was born, she sang. When I was born, she would take me with her to choir rehearsal. And I would just sit there and take in that music. And as soon as I could probably stand, I was in some kind of choir. And we lived in Germany. My dad was in the Air Force. And so we lived in Germany. I was there first, second, and third grade, but I was singing in the adult choir. Now I was a kid, so I was like a soprano, But so I kind of just grew up singing, that's always been my first love, and music in general has always just turns my brain on. Then I went to fast forward to college, and also a science geek, so I wanted to be like
a biology degree.
Yeah, I was pre-med, man. I took my MCATs and all that stuff, man.
Wow.
I did. And I wanted to be a doctor, but music was always right there. And after I graduated college, I was applying to medical schools and graduate schools, and I just didn't want to have any regrets. And I was in St. Louis at the time, staying with my grandfather. And I literally, he's retired now, but he used to be a security guard at the post office, and he worked the midnight shift. And I was working at TGI Fridays downtown, like across from Busch Stadium, St. Louis. And one night I was just sitting like, it's like you kind of leave your body and you sit across from yourself and you're like, okay, what do you really want to do? And I said, I want to try this singing thing. Like, because once you get into medical school, that's it, man. That's all she wrote. So I was like, okay, well, you're not going to do, I want to like sing jingles in commercials or make an album, something like that. And so I was like, well, you cannot do that here. And I knew St. Louis wasn't the end. I knew that. I was like, this is not where I land. I knew that. So I was like, well, what do you need to do? And I was like, well, they sing in New York. I think people make records in New York.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode.
And I was like, okay. Then so I just bought a one-way ticket here, man. I did. And I got transferred from the TGI Fridays in St. Louis to the TGI Fridays in Midtown on 50th and 7th. And so once I started working there, my new friends, see, I didn't know, because I didn't grow up wanting to be an actor or an artist like that. But, you know, in the city, a lot of aspiring actors and artists, they're waiters. You know, they wait tables in restaurants because, you know, that schedule is easy to be able to follow your dreams and make your rent. And so like my new friends here were like aspiring artists and everyone wanted to be on Broadway. And, you know, so I just followed them around, man. And I went to this open call with them. They were like, I told them I sang. They were like, okay, you sang, come to this audition. And I went to this audition. It was an open call for Rent. And it was like, you know, toward the end, I want to say, of the run. And my audition like was on the news that night. And that was crazy. They had a camera in there like recording, and then they kept calling me back. And I was like, I don't even know like what I'm auditioning for. I did not know what I was auditioning for. They was like, can you come back later? And they gave me some music to learn. I came back and they just kept calling me back. So finally I was like, well, let's just go see. Let's actually go see what you're auditioning for. So I won the lottery. And so I'm sitting in the front row and the show starts. And as it progresses, I was like, I can do. Like it just kind of clicked. It was interesting. I was like, I can do that. I can do that. That I can do. And that's when it was like my dream. That dream found me. I didn't have that dream. And so that dream actually came to me. There's like, here's why you are here. Here's why you're here in New York. Here's one of the reasons, I should say. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And so I kept getting callbacks, and I was like, well, you can't just jump up there. These other things are happening. You're not just singing. So I was like, I started taking an improv acting class at this place in Midtown. Doesn't even exist. It used to be this black box theater. Now it's Diamond Haircuts now. You can get your haircut there. But it used to be a black box theater. And it was on, 39th and 8th. Yeah. And so I started taking acting classes. I started like going to Barnes and Noble and reading books on acting. And I would just sit on the floor and just kind of like just try to learn, you know, the acting thing. And I never got rent. I never booked it, but it started the kind of journey of till where I am now with Broadway. Cause I was like, all right, this is what you want to do? All right, then we're going to have to do it. You know, let's just buckle down. And here we are, man, some years later. And I am Tony and Grammy nominated.
Wow. And now speaking of music, all of these things that you've done so many concerts. I was looking through your resume, like you've sung with Michael Buble at Radio City and with Mariah Carey at the Beacon Theater and Wynton Marsalis and at Lincoln Center and like the Broadway Pops. And my God, like looking back at that little kid, is your mom around now to see where you are, what you've become?
Yeah, my parents are both around, and
my goodness,
they're married. They've been married for 45 years now.
Oh, good for them.
And yeah, they're still kicking, still together. They live down in Virginia, and they are my biggest supporters. And my dad, I feel like I have to pay him. He's like my press agent sometimes. And sometimes it's like sometimes he knows things before I know them. And I'm just like, how do you know? He's like, oh yes, I heard y'all going to DC and LA. Like he was talking about, I was like, how do you know this? And they have been they've been so proud. And it's interesting because, you know, my dad, you know, he is in the Air Force. And so he's very blue collar. You know, they both got their college degrees while they raised us. And so, you know, we don't come from much, you know, and so to go to college, it wasn't easy. And I had some scholarships, but they really had to really work hard to put me through college. And then when I decide not to go, you know what I mean, not to be a doctor, for them to turn around and say, son, if this is what you want to do, we support you. And they have been nothing but the best support system. I am blessed. I am so blessed to have them in my life. And they're so proud. Like my mom, I could tell my mom I sang for 3 people in the corner and she started crying. Like she's just the sweetest thing. And my dad is the same. You know, he's equally as sweet and equally as supportive. And they have just always been in my corner, man. They really have.
Like as a parent, I've got 2 little kids. As a parent, if I'm trying to think of who the equivalent for me would be, but if like one of my children was like, Dad, I'm like hanging out with Otis Williams now when I go to LA. Like that's the friendship I've developed in my career. I would flip my lid. I would be so unbelievably proud of my children, you know, just my God. And it's funny too, because I see the love goes both ways. There's in this time we've been chatting, there've been 2 times when your face has just lit up beyond belief. It's when you're talking about Otis Williams and now when you talk about your parents.
They're the best, man. They really are. It was so funny when I booked them. I'm trying to cry. They made me cry. I love them so much. But like when I told them I booked the show, when I told them I booked Ain't Too Proud, they went into this long, like, the Temptations. And they just start going back to how, like, you know, when my dad and his sister went to see the Temptations in Indiana. And I was just like, what? They have all of these stories about their childhood that I never knew until I booked the show. You know, like I grew up listening to like the Temptations Christmas album. Like every Christmas that Christmas album was the one I knew. But like for me, like my dad is a huge jazz buff. My mom is a huge gospel fan, and she likes opera. So like those are the 3 genres in my house. So we didn't listen to a lot of Temptations. It was just that Christmas album. But when they were growing up, the Temptations they just ran all through their lives. And my parents were so excited. Like I couldn't tell. They were like, yeah, because Otis Williams. And they just went in, man. Like they went in. It was crazy. It really was crazy.
That is so unbelievably cool. Yeah. That's great. And I love to hear the stories of the parents who are like, well, you're not doing what I hoped you would do, but we still love you. We support you. We're going to be in your corner no matter what you decide to do. And I think that goes so far.
I think, you know, I keep saying this, I really have good parents, but the thing about life is, you know, I just think that sometimes there are just direction changes, right? And you have plans for your life. You like, you know, at this point, like I'm single now, but like when I was 14, I just knew by 20, I'd be married with kids, you know, so I'm going to graduate college, you get married, you have kids, and that's that. And then I changed course and said, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm actually going to be an artist. You know what I mean? And if you are a parent, you know, you live longer than your children, obviously, but like, you know that life just comes with twists and turns, and their parenting skills allowed me to just follow where my journey is taking me. And the only thing that I needed from them is I love you and go. And that's exactly what I got from them. So when I changed my mind from being a doctor to I want to now be an artist, they were like, we support you. Like, we're not gonna give you any money. But like, they're like, the buck stops here. But like, if this is your dream, like, we will support you on that. And I never got an objection. I remember being scared to tell them. I remember being scared to tell my parents. I told my mom first. And she was like, you're going to talk to your father. And I was like, I know. So I think I waited like a week or two. And then I had a conversation with him. And he was like, son, if this is what you want to do, man, go and do it. Go and do it. And we support you. And I've never looked back. Life is just, it's filled. It's filled with so many plot twists. It just is. And if you just allow yourself to kind of just live life, the thing that you think is a plot twist is probably something that was going to happen anyway, because you've allowed your life to kind of take the direction and take the shape it wants to take. I've had so many damn plot. Can I say damn? I've had so many damn plot twists, and I'm just like, oh my God. Okay, here's where we are, and let's go. But I have a circle of support and a circle of love that each plot twist, there's someone there to deal with that with me. So it's been great.
Oh, I love that. So how does this relate to the 54 Below show? We gotta talk about 54 Below show a little bit. That's what you're here to promote. So tell me about what's going to be in this show. Is this your first time performing there or first time headlining?
This is my first time headlining there. Yeah. I have been running away from doing a solo show. I want to say when 54 Below first opened, they asked me. I think I might have been in Memphis at the time. And so they have every so often they would ask, and I would come up with an excuse. And it was a valid excuse in my mind. But ultimately, I just had fear, I had a lot of fear of like just getting up there and just kind of bearing my soul and sharing of myself. And I think because of kind of the heart and soul searching that I've been doing this last year, and also the work I did with Ain't Too Proud, it gave me the kind of courage to kind of just step into myself, to step into my gifts, to step into my truth. And when they asked again, because I can't believe they kept asking, I would have stopped after 3. And I can't tell you, I mean, those people, I'm telling you, 54 Below people, they're persistent. And I'm actually grateful. I'm very, very grateful that they're persistent because I'm in a place now where I can just get up there and just share. I'm also like sometimes with cabarets, they can be so like masturbatory. Like I want people to, come and hear me sing. I'm going to sing, these high notes and, come and hear how beautiful my voice is. But like, I've never been that person to want to see a show like that. And I never have been a person to want to perform like that. That's just never been me. Mm-hmm. And when I see a performance, no matter what it is, no matter what genre it is, if it's, watching someone paint or if I'm watching a dancer at Alvin Ailey, like I, as an artist, I know when that person is being just truthful as opposed to performative, and I'm in a place now where I just want to share my art, man. That's all I want to do. And so this show is very special to me because we talked about kind of the journey and plot twists and all that stuff. And so my show is pretty much moments in my life, and my life has a soundtrack to it. I think all of our lives have a soundtrack to it. And there are big moments in your life where you remember like, ooh, that song was playing, with Ain't Too Proud, of course, that's Temptations music. And what was I going through when I first started that show? And what was I going through when I ended that show? Because that was a journey within itself. That was a moment. And I talk about moments within and moments, because you can have a long moment, you can have moments within a moment. And so like, I'm going to talk about just some moments in my life. And I'm going to go through those, and hopefully it will, the people who come to see it, I hope to connect with them and say, oh, you know what? I actually have moments in my life, that song you listened to when you fell in love, that song you listened to when you were holding your pillow crying, when you fell out of love, it's like, there's just, the music is such, it's such a reflection, you know, it's such a reflection of the times, and artists reflect the times, you know, and uh, again, what's happening in this country, what's the music that you're listening to? What was the music that like my parents or my grandparents listened to? What did they sing during the 50s and the 60s when there was a lot of racial upheaval? And so like we're gonna look at just all those types of moments. Since it's me giving the show, we're gonna start with my moments. And hopefully, you know, it will cause you to kind of look at the moments in your life and make you grateful for all the moments, because, you know, uh, every moment isn't light. You know, sometimes they're very, very heavy moments. They're very painful moments. But if you're able to look and see how these moments shape you, each moment will be beautiful. You know, I look at a very bad breakup that I had, and then I look at where I am today, and I said, if I didn't break up in this moment, I wouldn't be the man I am today, you know? And so that moment, although it hurt, you know, it's actually, now it's beautiful. And I'm grateful to say that was actually a beautiful moment. And so 54 Below, you know, when you come and hear some singing, because I will be singing instead of talking. What if I just got up there and talk the whole time? They're like,
you expected me to sing? Hell no, I do that all the time.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna tell you some jokes.
Right. Well, check across the road and, you know, so when you come and hear the singing, hopefully the songs, I hope they just kind of touch you in a different way, even if you love them. Hopefully it touches your heart and pulls on your heartstrings a little bit. But we're gonna, you know, it's gonna talk about life a little bit.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And
Yeah.
I mean, the moments, there's so many moments that yeah, you're right. That I look back on and I'm like, yeah, that was really, really crappy in the moment.
Yeah.
And then like, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be having this conversation if all those bad moments didn't happen.
It's true. And, you know, and it's like, you know, again, because there's so many plot twists, every moment, they're not going to be good moments, but those bad ones, like, they're important to have. You know, they really do shape you. They shape you. I am shaped by some painful moments. I just am, you know, even this pandemic, you know, and the solitude that forced me to kind of be still, you know, this year was rough, you know, it was rough for me, but I am so grateful for it. Like, I am such a different person than I was a year ago because of this pandemic, and because it caused me to sit with myself and just take in everything and to adjust everything that I need to adjust. And it's been great. It really has been. And I truly thank God. I thank God for every moment in my life. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the pain. The pain, it kind of like, you know, you have the Grand Canyon, right? And it looks so beautiful, but like water shaped that. Yeah. Water eroded that rock, you know? And so it's just like with us, you know, sometimes the sharp edges of who you are, the pain kind of just softens you a little bit, and it kind of just shapes you, you know? And I have been shaped. I have been shaped by life. And it's a beautiful thing because where I am now, and the wholeness that I have and the healing that I have now, it's because of the moments in my life that have shaped it, you know, and I'm grateful for it. You're not grateful when you're going through it.
No, it hurts.
Oh, no, you hate it.
It sucks.
I hate every second of it. And you're like, when is it over? Because like, this needs to be over. I'm going to give you 2 days and it's over. And you're like, oh, no, we're into 2 weeks and it still hurts. Got it. Cool. But you know, it just shapes you, man. It does. And if you allow it, it will shape you into having a beautiful life, and you'll be grateful for everything that has happened. Not just, you know, the Tony nominations, but like the pain that went into getting that Tony nomination. Like, I was very sick at the Tony Awards. At the Tony Awards, my kidneys were malfunctioning.
No kidding.
Literally sitting in the awards, my kidneys were malfunctioning. I was in the hospital 2 days later.
Did you know that at the time, or you just felt kind of off a little bit?
At the time, I thought it was food poisoning.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy? And it was a terrible, like, I was in pain the entire night. My first time being nominated for a Tony, and I'm in pain. pain. And I'm thinking that it's my stomach. Oh no, it's my kidneys. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, that was so much pain that's surrounded within this beautiful moment of having my first, Tony nomination sitting next to my parents. It's like this, it's so many layers. There's so many layers to like where we are in our lives. And each moment is so layered, and there's such beauty and such pain in all of it.
Oh, that's like tragically funny, but
it's literally crazy. I didn't do the show that day because I was bowled over in pain. They were like, but can you actually perform at the Tonys? I was like, no, I'll be at the Tonys. I just can't do this show. They were like, fine. And so I took whatever medicines I thought I needed to take, which actually none of it I needed to take because I was treating food poisoning and I didn't have food poisoning. But I made it through, and then, we were in the opening number, and then the next performance was us. Cause every show gets to present themselves. And so we were right after the opening number, and then I was done. And so, my adrenaline was so high that I didn't feel a thing until after everything came down. And that's when the pain came back.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. Man, little things, there are so many people that, I say this over and over again on this podcast, that you and your peers are the Olympians of theater. You are the top of your craft, the best of your game, 8 times a week to make it fresh and new every single time.
Yeah, man.
Through the pain.
Through everything. And it's like, I have several ENTs, but my ENT at the time, I would go in there and, for a checkup, and she's like, I don't even understand how you're performing at what I'm looking at. She would she would scope my sinuses, and I probably have an infection in there. And she was like, did you do the show yesterday? I was like, yep. And I'm probably going to do a show today. She was like, I don't understand how you're doing that. And then that's just the insides of me. Let's not even talk about physically, like the amount of strain and stress, my knees happen because I'm in these dance boots for Ain't Too Proud. I'm in a show where I'm in every single scene of the show. So I don't get to sit down. And so I'm standing, and my legs are on fire and my back is on fire. And at the same time, I have to make sure that I'm talking correctly so I don't lose my voice, because I'm talking 95% of the book was me talking. You know what I mean? And then I got to turn around and sing. And then I have to dance in over 25 numbers. You're not supposed to do that.
Did you prep Nick Walker? Did you be like, dude, listen,
I did.
Listen, man, you start working out now.
Bro, we sat down. He called me because I think he was coming off of the Hamilton tour.
Yeah.
And he called me. He was like, I want to sit down with you. I was like, I want to sit down with you. And I was like, I need to let you know what's about to happen. And because no one could tell me that, because I originated and I was I was doing it in real time and learning as I go. But I was like, here's what's going to happen for you. Here's what you need to do. And we just sat down. We went to a sushi restaurant right in Midtown. And I sat him down, man, and I said, here's what's going to happen, and get ready for A, B, C, and D. And I was happy to do it, man. I was, because that's the one thing I wish I had, but no one can tell you something that hasn't been created. You're creating it.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was going to say. The flip side of this is that now, your name, your who you are, Derrick, is part of the show, and it will be forever. It won't be what it is without your contributions.
That's my show. Listen, that's my show. The tone of the show is based off of my energy. Since I was the lead and since I was carrying it, I was number one on the call sheet. And so that dominant energy is what determines what the show will be. And so I would start doing things, and Jeremy Pope and Ephraim Sykes were like, okay, that's what we're doing. Boom. And so then everyone just kind of piled in, and everyone kind of just lined up. And I said, this is the tone I want. This is the tone I'm going for. And that was the tone of the show. And it will probably continue to be the tone of the show based off of my energy. But really, also based off of Otis's energy, because this is Otis's energy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, the one thing I wanted to do is make sure that because I look nothing like him. I like nothing like him. And he's like about 5 or 6 inches taller. He's several shades darker. And it's like there's no physical similarities, but his spirit I get. And I wanted to make sure that his spirit kind of lives on well after I'm done with the show. And well after, you know, there's tours going out, and hopefully he'll go to London and Australia and Tokyo. And each one of those, you know, tours, hopefully his spirit will live in each of those, you know, but I had to determine that. And I was like, all right, this is what it is, y'all. And let's go.
I love that. And oh man, I love how that comes together, because when everyone is not in it for their ego, when they're in it for their characters and the creation and the pure art of it. And it sounds like that was just what it was. It's like, all right, we are telling the story. We are working together to pull this into existence and to take this, I mean, out of the mind of Otis, out of the mind of Dominique, and off the page. That's, I mean, I have never had the opportunity to originate a Broadway role. Many people will never have that opportunity. That's one of those moments where you're like, it is painful in it, and you look back and I think from an evolutionary standpoint, right? We're kind of conditioned we're only preconditioned to remember really the good stuff, because we want to continue. We want to continue to go back to that. And herd immunity. You got your tribe. You've got your chosen family. You've got your cast. Casts are family. I say that over and over again too. Absolutely. And you're making these connections and building a legacy with a group of guys you may or may not have ever had an opportunity to know beforehand, but now you'll know forever.
Absolutely, it's very true, man. And I've been fortunate to. I mean, that's the 4th show I originated. Like, I don't know. That's my only experience on Broadway's originating shows. That's a blessing. That's a blessing in itself, you know. And I've been very fortunate to be part of some really good casts and to have some really good connections. Like, again, me and James met in 2004 with Memphis before we even made it to Broadway in 2009. And so, like, you know, we've remained friends. And Sherry Renee Scott, we're very, very close. And Sierra Bogus, who played Ursula and Ariel in Little Mermaid, like the 3 of us, like, we're very, very good friends. Even with Spelling Bee, you know, we still keep in touch. We just talked like for Pride at the top of June. Jose Lana like just sends us a text, "Happy Pride, y'all," you know, and so it's like then the whole group just gets together and we just kind of just reminisce and joke, and like there's just it's a beautiful thing when you can kind of through the years, you know, the connections that you make, you can continue to kind of feed them. You're not always going to have them because, again, like theater is a job, so I don't necessarily, you know, I'm not going to be in close contact with everyone that I've ever worked with. But there are key connections that I will always hold on to. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
That for me was actually very strange when I first got into the business because like I didn't study what I'm doing and I kind of just threw myself into like theater. And I was like, y'all get so familiar with each other so fast. Like everyone's like, I was like, what is going on here? Yo, fast friends. Everyone's like fast friends. And I was like, good grief, was like hugging on each other and I was just hugging and touching. And I just met you. It was like, that was for me an adjustment. That was the adjustment. I was like, I don't know you hugging on me and touching me. I'm like, good grief, I love you, we're friends. But it's really cool, man. It's the theater community. It's a beautiful community to be part of. Broadway community. It's a wonderful community to be part of.
Yeah, and I think there's a subset of the TV film too. That side of things that the people who you know, I mean, you're obviously going to make, let's call it what it is. You're going to make a lot more money doing TV and film for the most part. Yeah. But then you come back and you find the joy and the love in theater. But I think of somebody, I'm going to bring up Chadwick Boseman, right? Like, now this guy, I feel like he was one of those guys. I never had the pleasure of meeting him. And I feel like he's one of those guys, though, that again, you're going to be fast friends with. And I just get the impression from the interviews, from what I see from him, from what I hear from people who know him, that he influences everyone he touched?
He was a producer and the lead character on the movie that I shot with him called Marshall, and sort of Thurgood Marshall. The other headliner in that movie, Josh Gad, we were in a Broadway show together. So like I came in knowing like the other lead.
Yep.
And so it was really cool. But Chadwick had this energy that was just, it was just very infectious. And he was very, I remember him being just very calm. It was a very calm and positive energy. And I think he kind of knew kind of the role he carried in that show, in that movie, but there was no pretense to him. And he felt very, and I'm going to say this, I'll give him this term. He was a very kind of like a blue collar actor, right? So like there was like, he's like, let's get dirty. Let's get down into this scene and let's work this scene. He's not fancy. He's not a fancy. There's sometimes a very fancy actors, he's not that guy. He's like, I'm here to work, and I just remember him his work ethic, which is wonderful. And he was just very, very kind. And that's my experience of him. We were not friends, but we worked together really well. And he welcomed me into that movie. And, the scenes that I got to share with him was wonderful. But outside of that, when we were just between takes, he was really cool to talk to. And we filmed that in Buffalo. And so I would fly back and forth because my scenes were kind of spread throughout the movie. And so I didn't have to be there the whole time. So second time I came up, they were in the courthouse or whatever. And he saw me. He's like, hey man, what's up? He's like, did you get to see like what's going on right now in this scene that they're shooting? I was like, no. He's like, no, go check it out. He's like, go sit with the director and like look. And I was like, all right. Like he was that guy, just really excited about working. And I'm grateful. I really feel like I learned from him. I did, and kind of how to, again, because God willing, I want to be an A-list actor myself, and I want to carry a movie. I know how to carry that now because I watched him carry it, and I'll take my experience from carrying my show in Broadway, in addition to what I've learned, how he carried his movie and how he carried his movies. It was just a great experience, man. He was a wonderful man. It really was.
Yeah. I can tell. I mean, the idea that I get from him, at least from what I'm reading and everything, it's just it feels like, again, that's just who he is. He was always wearing the earth, man. Yeah, just always wearing his personality on his sleeve and carrying it into his characters, right? Like this is who I am.
And just not a bit of pretense. Like that's what you want. Like it can sometimes be when someone has really achieved something, like the Viola Davises, the Denzel Washingtons, the Tom Hanks, the Steven Spielbergs, like these guys are juggernauts in our business, right? And so it can be intimidating working for someone that has achieved so much. But when they turn around and say, I actually don't care about what I've achieved, we're here working together, that's the kind of actor you want to work with. I hope that's the kind of actor that I remain. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm grateful for the achievements. I really am. But when I'm in something, that's all that matters. That scene and that project. I don't care that I have a Grammy nomination. I don't care that I have a Tony. I don't care. I don't care what I have achieved, because what I need to achieve is making sure that we tell the truth in this particular piece, and what I need to show up fully here. I can't show up fully if I'm like, look at my achievements. I can't show up. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I'm playing a doctor here or a spy here. But did I ever tell you when I got a Tony nomination? Like, no one cares about that. Like in the heat of the moment, let's just show up. Let's show up. Let's do this piece. And like, I feel like Chadwick was like that. And I feel like I haven't met a lot of these people, but like I haven't met any of those people that I mentioned, Viola, Denzel. I'd love to meet you guys. I've never met. No, I did meet Spielberg. I have met him. He seems like a nice guy. I met him at church.
What?
I met Spielberg at church. And so I was like, yeah, which is weird. Whole nother story. But like, they just, I hope that, that level of success says, yes, I've achieved it, but what's more important is what we together are going to achieve in this piece. Chadwick was that guy for sure.
I love that. All right. So let's wrap up here with 3 questions I ask everybody to end out the episodes here. The first one, very simply, is what motivates you?
Gratitude. And that is very new for me. I am in a place in my life where I have adjusted my perspective in what I do, right? A lot of times, especially with Broadway, you get so tired because it's 8 shows a week. You should not be doing 8 shows a week ever. And doing this show, doing Ain't You Proud, that it just took it out of me, man. It truly did. Physically and emotionally, like spiritually, it just did. And I kind of lost the gratitude of what I did. And where I'm at now is just making sure that I remember, like, I get to do this. And like, what a blessing that is to get to do something. So like right now, I'm in between projects, but that work will come. And when that project presents itself, I get to do that, And so I'm excited, and it kind of keeps the energy for me moving forward. It's just like, what's next? Like, all right. And then once I get that, yes, thank you, God, for this, this blessing, this project. I think staying thankful for what you are doing in the moment kind of creates the next moment. And it allows the abundance that I think all of us are looking for to kind of continue to move and flow through our lives. So gratitude motivates me.
All right. What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
So many things I want to say. So many things. But the first thing I will say is find your truth. Find out who you are as a person, as a woman, as a man, however you identify. Find that truth. Learn to accept that truth. Sometimes that truth is hard to accept, but learn to live in that truth. Learn to live in your body. Learn to live. Listen, I have big lips. I got a big wide nose. I have big eyes, big ears. My widow's peak is off-centered. Like, I know this about myself. It's all true, man. But I know this about myself because I have accepted it, right? Like, I know that I'm not going to have the Eurocentric nose. I know that. I know these are my features. My body, I'd love to be 2% body fat, but that's not who I am, and I am still learning to kind of accept that, and so I would say just live in your truth, whatever that is for you, your sexuality, gay, straight, bi, fluid, whatever that is. Learn to just live in that and accept that, because once you start accepting yourself for who you are, your art is just elevated. It's completely elevated because you are truthful with yourself, so you can be truthful in your art. Because if you're not, and again, listen, there's probably a lot of actors that we know that are like A-list actors who are probably not living in their truth and who are living double lives, or they're very depressed or whatever. Because a lot of times you think this is happening in this actor's life because they're making so much money, but actually the opposite is actually happening. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so once you are able to live in your truth and know that your journey is your journey and no one else's, don't look to the right and don't look to the left. Be happy where you are, be content in where you are, and learn to live in your truth. I would say that first.
All right. Last question then. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh, that's not fair, man. That's not fair. Can I give you 2?
Sure. You give me 2.
I'll give you 2. So the first one would be The Wiz.
Nice.
For sure. The second one would be Light in the Piazza.
Oh, that's an interesting choice.
Oh man, that thing! I'm a hopeless romantic, so there's that. And that show, I was in spelling bee when that show was on Broadway, and we were up against each other in all the categories for the Tonys. And that Tony Awards was really cool because we got these two Tonys, they got those two Tonys. Like it was really evenly split.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Spamalot was there that year too. And but when I sat and I saw that show, I don't know how I was able to see it. I guess we were on different schedules for like a week or two, and I was able to go see it. And Victoria Clark, who won the Tony that year for Best Lead Actress in a Musical, I met her at Spelling Bee's off-Broadway opening, and I didn't know who she was. I had no clue who she was until I saw her on stage on Broadway. And there was this moment where she entered and she walked straight down. She walked straight down the center of the stage. It was at Lincoln Center, so it's like it's in the round, essentially almost around. And so she walked straight down, and she sees me, and then she looked right through me. She was like, "I'm here to work." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So I just learned so much, but also the music, it's just beautiful, romantic music, which I'm really into. I love, kind of a period piece. And so those two musicals are my favorite.
Oh, I love that. All right. So where can we find you online?
Social media, Instagram is Derrick.Baskin, DERRICK.BASKIN. Twitter is just at Derrick Baskin. Those are the two that I am usually on. Probably won't see you on Facebook. So Instagram is, Facebook is for like, my family, my aunties, my cousins. But like, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. And, I'd love to interact with everyone who follows me.
Oh, I love that. All right, you can get more of me at thetheaterpodcast.com. I'm on Instagram and Twitter on theater_podcast. I am on Facebook /official theater podcast. Leave a rating review wherever you're listening now. This has been edited by Well-Rounded Hoodlum Productions. Music by Jukebox the Ghost. And Derrick, conversation by you. Thank you. This has been so much fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Breath, make the world a little colorful.